Imagine you have a garden in which flowers grow. Every week the number of flowers miraculously increases. It starts with just one flower in the first week. In the second week there is also only one, but then a strange rule seems to follow. In each subsequent week the number of flowers always equals the sum of the flowers from the previous 2 weeks. After 6 weeks you already have 8 flowers in the garden. Can you find out how many flowers there will be after the 10th week? The mathematician Leonardo Fibonacci provided the solution to the puzzle. But to what extent did Leonardo Fibonacci's theories, especially the Fibonacci sequence, influence the development of mathematics and its application in nature, art and technology?
Let's start with a look at Fibonacci's life. Leonardo Pisona, which is Fibonacci's civil name, was probably born in Pisa around the year 1170. His death is estimated to have occurred after 1240 and again in Pisa. Unfortunately, not much is known about his life. His father was the head of the Pisan trading colony. This was located in Bucha, which is in today's Algeria. There he learned about the Indo-Arabic numeral system, which was not yet widespread in Europe at that time. He was fascinated by it and traveled further in the Orient to deepen his knowledge. He returned to Pisa around the year 1200, where he was a private schooler and mathematical writer. In 1202, he published the Liber Abaci, which means in English Book of Calculation. It was the Italian's most important work. This book popularized the Indo-Arabic number system, which we still use today in the Western world. Many people think of Fibonacci directly in terms of the Fibonacci sequence, but it was the fact that he introduced the Indo-Arabic number system to Europe that makes him one of the most important mathematicians of the Middle Ages. We will now take a closer look at the Fibonacci sequence. In order to understand how the Fibonacci sequence influences math and nature, we must first understand what the Fibonacci sequence actually is. As already mentioned, the Fibonacci sequence was first correctly published and applied in the Western world in 1202. At first glance, the Fibonacci sequence appears to be simply a sequence of different numbers, but if you look at it closely, you realize that it makes a lot of sense. The Fibonacci sequence is based on the simple system that one number in the sequence is always the sum of the 2 previous numbers. In order to record this calculation in a formula, the following applies. N equals n minus 2 plus n minus 1. Using this formula and the 2 starting numbers 0 and 1, this now gives the Fibonacci sequence 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, etc. An example in which the Fibonacci sequence can be visualized very well is the spiral. For example, take a square with the side length 1 and then place another square with the side length 1 on top of it. From now on, a new square is always added to the longest side with the side length of the longest existing side. If you now look at the side length of the squares, you will notice that this results in exactly the Fibonacci numbers. If you now always take the corner point of a square, which connects it to the center of the spiral with the next larger one, and now draw a quarter circle from this point into each square, you get a spiral.
Another exciting topic in maths that can be derived from the Fibonacci sequence is the golden ratio. It's a number that represents a relation. But what relation does the golden ratio represent and how does it relate to the Fibonacci sequence? The golden ratio has the symbol phi and is the number 1.618039. If you take a number from the Fibonacci sequence and divide it by the next smaller number, the result is always the approximate golden ratio, 1.618039. As you can see, the golden ratio becomes more accurate the larger the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence become. Another good example where you can easily recognize the golden ratio is a pentagram. If you draw a pentagram with a line, you get a star with a perfect pentagon in the center. Now you can see 4 different lengths on the line from one point to the other. The length from the point to point AD, the length from the point to second intersection AC, the length from the spike to the first intersection AB, and the length from the intersection to intersection BC. If you now divide one of these distances by the next smaller distance, you also get the perfect golden ratio again.
Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, all well and good, but can this ratio do more than impress mathematicians? First, we don't just find this number in math books, we find it everywhere in our everyday lives. We must remember that the ratio of the golden ratio isn't an invention, but rather a discovery. Without human influence, we find golden ratios in nature. We often come across the spiral, which we have already looked at, in both small and huge proportions. The spiral on the shell of a snail corresponds to it as much as the huge galaxies of stars in the universe. Sunflower seeds in a sunflower are also arranged in a spiral. There are spirals that twist to the right and other spirals that twist to the left. But that's not all. The number of spirals is not random. They are always numbers from the Fibonacci sequence that lie next to each other in the row. For example, 89 spirals to the right and 144 to the left. We even find the ratio of the golden ratio on our own bodies. The distance between the sole of the foot and the navel in relation to the length of the body corresponds to this fascinating figure. But why all this? Ultimately, there seems to be more to the golden ratio than just playing with numbers. Many people find the ratio particularly harmonious and aesthetic. The golden ratio, therefore, makes nature more beautiful, from the snail to the galaxy, including our own bodies. In the case of the sunflower, the Fibonacci sequence obviously also maximizes functionality. This human realization marked the beginning of a new era of aesthetics. Today, man himself develops things that are related to the golden ratio. The golden ratio was already used in art during the Renaissance. In the painting Triumph of Galatea by Raphael, Galatea's head is in the aforementioned proportion to the height of the picture. The ratio of the golden ratio was also consciously applied to famous architectural buildings. The Eiffel Tower and the Leipzig City Hall are two examples. Last but not least, the ratio is also used in photography in order to benefit from the aesthetic advantage. However, the term rule of thirds is used there. Normally, it is sufficient to round the ratio in a photo, as you cannot recognize from an image whether the ratio matches to the decimal place.
The Fibonacci sequence has become very important in both technology and music. In the stock market, the Fibonacci retracement is a well-known method used to predict the price setbacks. Specific ratios such as 0.236, 0.382, 0.618 and 0.786 are used. These numbers are based on the ratios of the Fibonacci numbers, which are expressed as a percentage. For example, the 61.8% level is based directly on the golden ratio. It's just a return value of 1.618. The ratio of 38.2% is calculated by dividing a Fibonacci number by the number that is 2 places higher in the sequence. For example, 21 divided by 55 equals 0.382, or 34 divided by 89 equals 0.382. The 23.6% ratio is calculated in a similar way. You divide a number by the one that is 3 places higher in the sequence. For example, 13 divided by 55 equals 0.236, or 21 divided by 89 equals 0.236. The 78.6% level results from the square root of 0.618. The Fibonacci retracement is used on the stock market to indicate possible support and resistance levels. To do this, the retracement level is applied to a significant price movement between a high and a low. In this way, traders can identify possible turning points in the price at which the price could either stabilize or continue the existing trend. However, it's unlikely that Fibonacci himself discovered these variations for the financial market. Rather, they became popular in the financial world through the technical analysis. The Fibonacci sequence also plays an important role in music. Many companies set the high point of a piece of music at around 61.8% of its total length in order to create a balanced dramaturgy. The length of the phrases in a piece is often based on the Fibonacci numbers, so that 8, 13 or 21 beats are not uncommon. The Fibonacci numbers can also be found in the beat and rhythm structure as well as in the scales and harmony of music. In classic music, companies like Bela Bartok, Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel use these proportions on purpose to shape the flow and dynamic of their works. No matter if it's on the stock market or in music, the Fibonacci sequence has provided fascinating insight into the use of mathematical ratios in different areas. However, this doesn't mean that all traders on the stock market or companies in music always follow these proportions.
And what about your flower garden now? In the meantime, many more flowers should have grown. Of course, we could calculate the number of flowers after 10 weeks by adding one number of the Fibonacci series to the next. But with the information about the series and about the golden ratio too, we can also set up a formula with which we can directly calculate any number in the Fibonacci series. The formula looks like this. The n stands for the digit, in this case the 10th digit in the sequence. The Greek letter phi describes the golden ratio. Let's enter these numbers into the formula. We get 55 as the result. This means after 10 weeks you will already have 55 flowers in your garden, and their number will increase every week. Whether you have the patience to carry out this experiment and observe whether the number of flowers agrees with Fibonacci's thesis is up to you. It remains for us to thank you for your patience in watching this video. We, as the IDPA group, hope that you were able to learn something new and that in the future you will no longer regard math as dry theory with no connection to practice.